Let's get more now on the news that the Bank of England says it wants to make it harder to get mortgages for buy-to-let properties. New tests would mean applicants would face tighter borrowing rules. The bank says the change is needed because an increased borrowing by landlords is inflating house prices. So we're going to discuss that now with Mark Croston, who's founder of the property investment website yourbuytolet.com and is also a buy-to-let landlord himself. Warm welcome to you. And also in our Nottingham studios, Kate Faulkner, a property analyst who runs propertychecklist.co.uk. Thanks for being with us too. Let's start off with you then, Kate. Do you think buy-to-lets are overheating the property market in your experience?
I don't think they are currently, but certainly the lending that was given out pre the credit crunch absolutely overheated some markets. So here I am in Nottingham, take anywhere, a lot of city centres in the Midlands, North, Glasgow, Northern Ireland. You've got flats that were sold at twice the price that they're actually selling out for now. And I think what the issue that we have is that some of the lending criteria isn't as good as it should be. And so I have some understanding with what the FCA was doing. I don't though think that it's causing overheating now. At the end of the day, it's still less than 20% of the market. So you'd have to go some way for it to do that. And not be funny, if you're a buy-to-let investor, the trick is to get a property at a discount, not push prices up versus other buyers, for example.
Mark Croston, as a buy-to-let landlord yourself, how do you feel about what the Bank of England have been saying? Because in a sense, the screw's already been tightened by George Osborne, hasn't he, by the Chancellor, and now the Bank of England tightening it a little bit further.
Indeed, and I think, yes, exactly that. It's just another challenge I think we need to face. I think ultimately, to be honest, though, the main challenges really were in sort of July when they talked about the wear and tear allowance going. Obviously, the mortgage relief, I think that's going to have a big impact in terms of landlords generally. The stamp duty, obviously, now that's come into effect as well. So those, I think, were sort of some of the key areas already that have been impacting us. I think what's happened today, and to be honest, I haven't looked at it in significant detail, but the stress tests that I've seen so far, my understanding is most lenders are doing a lot of that already today anyway. I mean, the 5.5% interest test, I know personally from mortgages that I've applied for, those are the tests they've been applying already at that stage. The broader financial aspects in terms of your personal situation, again, in all applications that I've generally been doing, they've asked me for all those details already. So I'm not 100% clear on what more is being done than what is already there.
But despite all those measures you've criticised, if you like, it's still obviously a pretty profitable enterprise to be in, else people like yourself wouldn't be doing it.
Correct, and I think the market generally, it is a strong market, and I'm very pro buy-to-let. I've bought a number of properties last year, and will continue to look at properties. I think the key thing is, though, it's about making sure that the numbers stack up. So basically looking at the right properties and going into it with your eyes open, knowing all the challenges that we now face, and making sure that you are making a profit and they do stack up.
Kate Faulkner, it is obviously about profits, but do you think buy-to-let, is it socially useful? Obviously there's a housing problem, a housing crisis, many people would say, in this country. Well,
there is, but actually we'd be in an awful lot worse situation if it wasn't for all the landlords that had come in since buy-to-let came into our mortgage world in 1997. And in actual fact, you could, when I tried to rent anything in the 90s, it was pretty horrible, to be honest. So you had to save up as much as you can because it was the only way of getting a decent home was to buy. That's not the case today. Our environment has changed completely. We've got, the estimate is 1 million new households will want or be in the rental sector in the next 5 years. And often we think that the rental sector, you're only renting if you have to. It's not the case. We've got students who are renting, migrant workers being UK or from abroad who are renting, and it's become a popular choice of tenure, a lot down to people like Mark who are offering really good quality buy-to-let properties.
So I mean, in that case, do you think the government, the Chancellor, the Bank of England, are they all being too aggressive towards buy-to-let landlords then?
I think the Bank of England, where it's spot on, is what they're looking at with the changes to lending is making sure that lending is done properly. And I don't think it is in all cases. Just to turn around and say, oh yes, you can have a buy-to-let mortgage because the rent is 120 or 135% higher than the mortgage interest, which is one of the main planning criteria isn't good enough as far as I'm concerned. It should be based on the actual costs, because you can lose money at those rates. Secondly, the big thing that I like is they're going to take tax into account. There are far too many people going into buy-to-let who do not understand the tax implications of that, which if you end up earning more than £50,000 because of your buy-to-let income, you could lose your child benefit. Most of the industry who are advising on buy-to-let doesn't understand that connection. So that is good. Where I think there is an overall problem is that because we don't have a real overriding housing strategy, they've kind of been tick-boxed, if you like, say, right, we better curb a bit of this buy-to-let land lending, curb some of the profits of landlords because they're making so much money, in theory, and I can tell you that's not happening all up and down the country. And the result of that is, well, where are we going to put the million new people who are going to want to rent property? That's the issue. It's not going to solve the underlying stock problem.
OK, Kate. Mark, do you feel put upon a little bit by the government and the Bank of England as a buy-to-let landlord? I mean, Kate was making the argument it is a socially useful enterprise, the whole buy-to-let idea.
Absolutely, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. You know, and we also know statistically that we're not building enough properties. So, you know, there is a housing shortage. And all that's happened now is you've got a housing shortage, you've got the government imposing more taxes on landlords. They then need to look at how do they manage that. And, you know, the reality is there's only a couple of options on that. You can try and remortgage if you haven't already. You can try and look at reducing other costs where possible. But the only other option as well is potentially looking at rent. And you know, I think there's potentially going to be an impact in terms of rent that landlords potentially would need to charge.
So briefly, if you had a message for the government and the Bank of England, would you say hands off or...?
Leave us alone. Let us do what we're doing.
All right, Mark Croston, thank you very much indeed. And Kate Faulkner in Nottingham, many thanks to both of you. Thank you.